The alien marketplace was loud, hot, and full of strange smells. Stalls were filled with bright fruits, dried meat, and metal parts from broken machines. But at the far end, away from the laughter of buyers, there was a darker place. Here, iron cages stood in long rows, stacked one over another. Inside them were living beings, thin, frightened, and silent. Among them were the cat girls. Their fur was dirty, their ears drooping, and their tails wrapped tightly around their bodies. Some looked down, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Others stared with anger, as if their spirit refused to break. A cruel alien merchant walked between the cages, shouting the prices as if he was selling fruit. Fresh meat, young and tender, buy before it's gone. His sharp teeth showed as he grinned. Aaron, a lone human traveler, walked slowly through the market. His boots crunched on the sand and dust. He had only a small pouch of credits in his pocket, the last of his money. He came here to trade for fuel or supplies, not to buy anyone. But as he passed the cages, something made him stop. In one cage, a pair of bright green eyes stared at him. They belonged to a cat girl who didn't look afraid. Her ears were alert, and her gaze was sharp, as if she was studying him. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just looked at him. And in that moment, Aaron felt something shift inside him. "Don't waste your time," the merchant said, noticing where Aaron's eyes had landed. "That one's wild. She bites. Not worth the trouble unless you want her meat." He laughed, tapping the bars with a metal rod. Aaron said nothing. His hand went to his pocket, feeling the few coins inside. He could buy food with them. He could save them for fuel. But the thought of leaving the cat girl here, in this place, made his chest feel heavy. As he stepped closer, he noticed something else. In the shadows of the cage, curled up and shivering, was another cat girl. Smaller, younger. Her fur was pale, almost silver, and her thin tail wrapped tightly around her legs. She was so still that Aaron wondered if she was even breathing. The merchant grinned. "2 for the price of 1 if you can pay." Aaron's stomach tightened. This wasn't part of his plan. But somehow, walking away felt impossible. The green-eyed cat girl tilted her head, still watching him, as if daring him to decide. The smaller one didn't even look up. The marketplace around him faded into noise. The smell of blood and rust in the air felt stronger now. Aaron's fingers tightened on the coins. It was all he had. But maybe it was enough to change something. He took a slow breath, and in that moment he knew. If he left without them, he would never forgive himself. Aaron stepped forward until he was standing right in front of the cage. The green-eyed cat girl kept her gaze locked on him, her tail flicking once, slow and sharp. The smaller silver-furred one stayed curled in the corner, still trembling. The merchant leaned on the bars, his wide mouth twisting into a grin. "So, the human wants them? You don't have enough money. I can see it in your face." Aaron reached into his coat and pulled out his pouch. He untied the string and poured the coins into his hand. The merchant's eyes narrowed, then widened slightly. There weren't many, but they were real credits. "That's all I have," Aaron said. His voice was steady, even though his heart was beating faster. The merchant laughed loudly, drawing attention from nearby shoppers. "All you have? Human. That won't even buy you a tail. These 2 are worth 5 times that, dead or alive." The crowd began to murmur, glancing at the cage and then at Aaron. Some of them smiled cruelly, waiting for him to walk away in shame. But Aaron didn't move. He closed his fist around the coins and stepped even closer. "I'm not leaving without them," he said. The merchant's grin faded for a moment. Then, with a shrug, he spat on the ground. "Fine. A fool's deal is still a deal. Take them and get out before I change my mind." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old, rusted key. Tossing it through the air, he let it fall into the dirt at Aaron's feet. Aaron bent down and picked it up. The crowd whispered. Some laughed. A few looked surprised. He unlocked the cage door, the metal creaking loudly. The green-eyed cat girl stepped forward instantly, her movements quick and controlled. She looked up at Aaron for a moment, then moved past him as if testing whether he would stop her. The smaller one hesitated, her pale fur wet with sweat, her breathing shallow. Aaron crouched down and offered his hand. "It's okay," he said softly. Her wide silver eyes met his, and for a moment, she didn't move. Then she crawled forward and slipped into his arms. She was light, too light, as if she hadn't eaten in days. The merchant waved him away. "Go on, human, before someone decides they want them more than you." Aaron looked around. He saw a few figures in the crowd watching him too closely, their eyes following every step he took. His gut told him this wasn't over. He tightened his grip on the younger girl and nodded to the older one. "Stay close," he whispered. Without another word, they moved into the busy market crowd. The noise and smells surrounded them, but Aaron could feel the weight of eyes tracking them. Somewhere behind him, a voice muttered, "Don't let him leave." Aaron didn't look back, but he knew trouble was coming. The market's noise felt louder now, but Aaron's ears were fixed on the sound behind him, footsteps that didn't belong to normal shoppers. Heavy, deliberate, and getting closer. He kept moving through the narrow rows of stalls, the silver-furred cat girl in his arms and the green-eyed one walking right beside him. Her sharp gaze flicked left and right, scanning for danger like a wild animal ready to run. "Aaron," she whispered, though she didn't yet know his name. "They're following us." He didn't ask how she knew. He could feel it too. Through the gaps in the crowd, he caught sight of them, 3 alien hunters. Their tall frames moved like predators, each carrying long blades strapped to their backs. Their eyes were locked on him, and when Aaron turned a corner, so did they. He quickened his pace, weaving between stalls selling tools, fabrics, and dried fish. The smell of smoke and oil filled the air. The green-eyed girl kept up easily, her step silent. The younger one's arms clung tighter around his neck, her breathing fast. Suddenly, a shout echoed through the market. "Stop that human! He stole the merchant's goods." Aaron cursed under his breath. It was a lie, but the words had power here. A few curious shoppers stepped aside, letting the hunters move faster. He spotted a narrow alley ahead, almost hidden between 2 leaning buildings. Without thinking, he darted into it. The ground here was rough, scattered with broken crates and sharp metal scraps. The shadows grew deeper as the noise of the market faded. But the hunters didn't slow. Their boots slammed on the ground behind him, closing the distance. Aaron's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. At the far end of the alley, he saw a gap between 2 stacked cargo containers, just wide enough for them to slip through. "Go!" he barked to the green-eyed girl. She sprinted ahead, sliding through the gap with the grace of a wildcat. Aaron followed, shielding the smaller one in his arms from the jagged metal edges. On the other side, they found themselves in a half-abandoned section of the city, the air smelling of rust and rain. For a moment it was quiet, then a shadow moved above them. One of the hunters had climbed onto the containers and was looking down, his blade drawn. Another was coming around from the side, blocking the path forward. Aaron shifted the younger girl to one arm and reached for a rusted metal pipe lying in the dirt. His knuckles tightened around it. "You'll have to go through me," he growled. The green-eyed cat girl stepped closer to him, her claws slowly sliding out. The younger one buried her face against his chest. The hunters grinned. "Gladly," and then they charged. The hunters lunged forward, their blades flashing in the dim light. Aaron swung the metal pipe hard, catching the nearest one across the jaw. The alien staggered back, hissing in pain, but another came from the side. The green-eyed cat girl leapt at him, her claws slashing across his arm, making him drop his weapon. "Run!" Aaron shouted. They didn't need to be told twice. The green-eyed girl dashed ahead, and Aaron followed with the younger one in his arms. Behind them, the hunters roared in anger. The chase pulled them deeper into the forgotten parts of the city, where the air was heavy with the smell of rust and old oil. Broken machines lay scattered across the streets, their metal frames creaking in the wind. Then Aaron saw it. an enormous structure rising in the distance, half buried in sand and dust. It was an old shipyard, abandoned long ago. Massive cargo vessels sat like sleeping giants, their hulls dented and covered in patches of moss. They slipped through a broken fence, the metal wires scratching at their clothes. Inside, the air was colder and quieter, except for the faint whistling of the wind through the hollow ships. "This way," Aaron said, leading them toward a rusted freighter with its hatch hanging open. The green-eyed cat girl scanned the shadows warily, her ears twitching. "Are you sure no one's here?" "No," Aaron admitted, "but it's better than out there." Inside, the freighter smelled of dust and stale air. The walls were lined with empty cargo racks, and loose wires dangled from the ceiling. Aaron lowered the younger cat girl onto a pile of old cloth sacks. She curled into them, her eyes half closed, exhausted. Aaron opened his pack and pulled out his last food ration, a small, hard bar. He broke it into pieces and handed them to the girls. The older one sniffed it suspiciously, then began to eat, while the younger one devoured hers quickly. For a moment there was silence. "Why did you buy us?" the green-eyed one asked, her voice low but steady. Aaron paused. The truth was, he didn't know exactly why. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Maybe it was the thought of walking away and doing nothing. "Because no one else would," he said finally. Before she could reply, a sound broke the stillness. Soft, deliberate footsteps echoed through the ship. Aaron's head snapped toward the doorway. The green-eyed cat girl's ears twitched, and her tail flicked sharply. "They're here," she whispered. Aaron stood slowly, gripping the metal pipe again. The air felt heavier now. Somewhere in the darkness of the ship, something moved. It wasn't the wind. The sound of footsteps grew louder, slow and steady, as if whoever was inside the shipyard had no reason to rush. Aaron motioned for the green-eyed cat girl to stay low, and he moved toward the side of the cargo bay. His grip tightened around the metal pipe, the cold steel grounding his nerves. Outside, a sudden rumble shook the air. Clouds rolled in over the dead shipyard, dark and heavy. The wind picked up, whistling through the broken hulls, carrying the smell of rain. Then the first lightning bolt split the sky. The younger cat girl whimpered softly, curling tighter into the pile of old sacks. The green-eyed one crouched beside her, her claws sliding out slowly, eyes fixed on the shadow that was now standing in the hatchway. A tall alien hunter stepped inside, his armor dark and glistening in the faint light. He held a curved blade in one hand, and his helmet's visor reflected Aaron like a cold mirror. "You made a mistake, human," the hunter's voice rasped through a translator. "Those two belong to the market. Hand them over, and I might let you walk away." Aaron didn't move. Another flash of lightning lit the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Rain poured through the holes in the ship's roof, splashing onto the metal floor. The sound masked the faint movement of another figure slipping in from the other side. Another hunter. Aaron's eyes darted between them. Two armed hunters and only one exit. The green-eyed cat girl's tail twitched. She glanced at the younger one, then at Aaron, her expression unreadable. The wind howled outside, shaking the ship. Aaron took a small step toward the nearest wall, his mind racing. If he could get to the control room, maybe he could lock the hatches, or at least trap the hunters inside. The older hunter stepped closer, his boots clanging against the floor. "You have 3 seconds. Aaron tightened his jaw. "You'll have to kill me first." Before the hunter could reply, the ship groaned as a violent gust of wind slammed against it. A loose cargo crate slid across the floor, crashing into the second hunter's legs. He stumbled, giving Aaron the opening he needed. "Run!" Aaron shouted. The green-eyed cat girl grabbed the younger one, and together they sprinted toward the narrow hallway that led deeper into the ship. Aaron backed away, swinging the metal pipe at the nearest hunter to keep him from advancing. They disappeared into the dim corridor, their footsteps echoing over the sound of the storm. Somewhere ahead, the faint hum of old machinery pulsed in the air. The green-eyed cat girl's ears twitched. "The engines," she said. "This ship still has power." Erin's eyes widened. If she was right, they might have a way out, if they could survive long enough to reach the controls. The corridor was narrow, lit only by flickering strips of old lights. Rust dripped down the walls in red streaks, and the floor shook as the storm pounded outside. Erin ran behind the green-eyed cat girl, the younger one clinging to her like a shadow. The sound of metal boots followed them, fast, relentless. They burst into a larger room, the ship's old control deck. Screens were cracked, and panels were covered in dust, but a low hum came from deep within the floor. The ship wasn't dead. The green-eyed cat girl's sharp eyes scanned the room. She darted to a control panel, her fingers moving with surprising speed. "I can wake the engines," she said. Erin turned, gripping his metal pipe tighter. "Do it." The first hunter appeared in the doorway, his blade raised. Lightning flashed behind him, casting his tall figure into shadow. He stepped in slowly, his voice low and threatening. "There is nowhere left to run." Erin didn't answer. Instead, he lunged forward, swinging the pipe with all his strength. The hunter blocked it with his blade, the clang of metal echoing through the ship. The force of the hit sent a shiver through Erin's arms, but he didn't stop. He struck again, pushing the alien back step by step. Then the second hunter burst in from the side passage, charging straight toward the green-eyed girl. "No!" Erin shouted, rushing to intercept. He caught the second hunter's arm mid-swing, the blade stopping inches from her face. The alien snarled and tried to push forward, but Erin's boot slammed into his knee, making him stumble. The green-eyed cat girl didn't waste the moment. She smashed a loose tool into the hunter's helmet, cracking the visor. Sparks burst, and the alien staggered back, disoriented. The younger cat girl huddled in a corner, her silver eyes wide with fear. But then she noticed something. One of the smaller panels was already glowing faintly. She crawled to it, her small fingers pressing a sequence of buttons. A deep vibration rolled through the deck. The old engines coughed, then roared to life, the sound echoing through the entire ship. Erin's eyes widened. How did she? "No time!" the green-eyed one shouted. "They'll kill us before we lift off." Erin ducked under a blade swing, shoving the first hunter into a console. Sparks exploded, the smell of burning wires filling the air. The second hunter lunged again, but the green-eyed cat girl slashed at his arm, drawing dark alien blood. Erin grabbed the smaller girl and pulled her close, backing toward the captain's seat. "Get us out of here," he yelled. The green-eyed one slammed her hand on the main lever. The ship groaned, the floor tilting as it began to rise. Outside, the storm screamed in fury, but inside, the hunters' growls were drowned by the roar of ancient engines. They were not safe yet, but they were moving. The ship's engines roared louder, shaking the entire control deck. Rust fell from the ceiling as the old freighter fought against years of stillness. Outside, the rain hammered the hull like 1,000 fists. The hunters braced themselves, gripping the walls, their blades still in hand. One of them snarled, stepping forward despite the trembling floor. "You can't escape us." Erin stepped between them and the cat girls, the metal pipe held like a sword. "Watch me." The first hunter lunged, but the sudden tilt of the ship threw him off balance. Erin swung hard, catching the alien across the helmet. The impact sent him sprawling into the doorway, where a broken panel sparked and caught fire. The second hunter tried to push past the green-eyed cat girl, but she moved with wild speed, her claws slashing deep into his arm. He roared in pain and dropped his blade, clutching the wound. The younger cat girl clung to Erin's coat, her silver eyes fixed on the rising storm outside the main window. Lightning lit the clouds, and below, the shipyard shrank as they lifted higher and higher. But one hunter wasn't finished. With a burst of rage, he charged forward, slamming into Erin and knocking him back toward the captain's seat. The metal pipe skidded across the floor. The green-eyed cat girl's ears flattened, her pupils narrowing to thin slits. She leapt onto the hunter's back, clawing and biting with everything she had. The alien staggered, trying to throw her off, but she didn't let go. Aaron grabbed the fallen pipe and brought it down hard on the hunter's helmet. Once, twice, the alien finally collapsed, unmoving. The only sounds left were the ship's engines and the pounding rain. Aaron leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His arms ached, and his clothes were soaked, but they were alive. The green-eyed catgirl slid off the hunter's body, wiping rainwater and blood from her face. She looked at Aaron for a long moment, then gave a small nod. The younger one pressed herself into Aaron's side, her tail wrapping around his arm. "You spent all your money," she whispered softly, almost afraid to speak. Aaron looked at her and smiled faintly. "Credits can be earned again. Lives can't." The freighter broke through the clouds, the storm falling away beneath them. For the first time in days, the stars stretched out across the black sky, endless and free. The green-eyed catgirl stepped closer, her tail brushing against his leg. "Where will we go?" Aaron stared out into the stars, his grip tightening on the controls. "Somewhere they'll never find us." The younger one purred softly, the sound low and warm, as the freighter vanished into the dark beyond, carrying 3 souls who had found each other in the unlikeliest of places.